Yo, what's up, everybody? Your boy Roshi here with my boy Sparrow. We're here for episode 2 of Couch Talk. For those of you who don't know, this is a bi-weekly segment focused on gaming that I have now added to the channel, where I discuss with a guest different topics around gaming. So today we are going to be talking about consoles, the console wars, who won, who did it better, who did it the worst, and what can they do for added success in the future. So I'm here with my boy Sparrow. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, your boy Sparrow, been gaming for 25 plus years, love all consoles, all games, all genres, so happy to be here.
Yeah, and he's a very good friend of mine, and I decided to do this with him because, as he said, he's not biased when it comes to games. I'm more biased than he is when it comes to games and consoles and that stuff, but he is not. He is more open-ended when it comes to all of this. So, what we're gonna start with today is we are at the end of the console cycle. Well, except Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft, they're at the end of their life cycle currently. So now we are gearing up for the new consoles, the new Xbox, the Series X, and then the PS5. Those are gonna be on their way very soon here. So with that being said, now we can discuss who won this console generation. Who do you think came out on top?
All right, so I'm gonna probably have to say Sony, and I don't mean that even lightly. I think they won by a long shot. And the reason I had to say they won, first of all, I'm not even considering hardware right now because the differences are negligible at this point, especially when you consider the baseline 2015 models. Everything was the same. So what did the Sony experience do to distinguish and differentiate itself from the pack? And that's what they've always done. Exclusives. They have a gold mine of exclusives, and they are not afraid to spend money. So if you say, why is the Sony experience better? Because they have the games that you can't play anywhere else. The Horizon Zero Dawns, the Uncharted, the God of Wars, and so on and so forth. Even unique ones like Detroit Become Human. So they have the console exclusives, can't play that anywhere else. They're not afraid to spend money. They pulled that magic trick this generation and locked in Street Fighter V. We can only imagine how much money they threw at Capcom to lock in Street Fighter V when Street Fighter IV was multi-platform.
Even though Street Fighter V was an absolute shit show of a
in
launch.
Its initial launch, yes, but it did for the fighting community, I think, come through in the end. But they're not afraid to spend money, and they're not afraid to lock in that exclusive content either. Those lock-ins have been as long as a year for certain DLCs, particularly with Destiny. And I kind of fell off on Destiny, but those Destiny fans are crazy, and Sony is spending the money to lock in content. They have all the best exclusives and a great, not only lineup of first-party exclusives, but they have other people that are loyal to them, like Naughty Dog, for example. Not a Sony developer, but might as well be because they don't put out games anywhere else.
Yeah.
So because of that exclusive lineup, I say Sony won hands down.
That's interesting because I have the same exact thought process when it comes to this. I think that Sony won strictly off the exclusives. Like, the exclusives are what won the entire console generation for me.
Let's be honest. The exclusives are the only thing that truly distinguish the consoles at this point.
Yeah.
Last generation Xbox Live and the online competitive experience was taking a dump on what Sony had to offer. And Xbox Live is still ahead. There's no arguing that. But the exclusives are the distinguishing factor.
So there's one of my favorite exclusives. Well, it's no longer an exclusive. Was Hellblade.
Mm-hmm.
So Hellblade was initially a Sony exclusive.
Ninja Theory, yeah.
Yeah, from Ninja Theory. So that was a big one for me. God of War, Uncharted, Bloodborne.
Oh, Bloodborne, absolutely.
Those were massive exclusives. And what's crazy is these consoles came out around the same time, right? So they all came out same year. Obviously, we're not talking Switch here. We're talking PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah. And, they had just about the same offering. And then what Sony just ended up leaving Microsoft behind in terms of exclusive content. And if I'm buying all my exclusive games on the PS4 and that's where I'm doing the majority of my gaming, then I am more accustomed to playing games on this console. So when new games come out that are multi-platform, I'm more likely to shell out the cash to get it on the system that's getting the more the more mileage. So I think that is definitely what made Sony the winner of that console generation. Yeah. So now we're talking about winners. Who would we say is the loser of this console generation?
I'm gonna have to go with Xbox. And before we get slaughtered in the comments, I would have said that 360 PS3 era, that Microsoft won that last generation with heavy hitters like Mass Effect and BioShock. I don't think BioShock was exclusive, but Mass Effect, the Halos, the Gears of War. But this generation, going back to that original point, what intellectual properties did Microsoft have that was exclusive to them? They continue to use the same tired old franchise, and yeah, I'll be one to play those games still, but there's a lack of innovation when it comes to putting out new games. We have the Halos, which can be good. We have Gears of Wars, which can be good, even though Gears of 5 was trash. The Forza series, but they're putting out the same games, the same franchises over and over and over, and there's no new IPs. While Sony had Horizon Zero Dawn, which was phenomenal, Detroit Become Human, and so on and so forth. There's just no new intellectual properties, same old franchises. And when you look at what did their exclusive offering have, to me personally, the most unique thing they had was Cuphead, which is no longer exclusive, but I'm not going to take that from them because that left exclusivity so long from the point where the game came out. But I'm going to have to say Microsoft crapped the bet on this. And that started with launch. From the price point to the Kinect to backtracking under the pressure of fans not being ready for what they had. They shouldn't have abandoned their original vision. Yeah. Just because the fans slaughtered them. They backpedaled, and they had a lot of innovative ideas, but the fans were scared of technology advancing, and they dumbed down the Xbox as a result of that. And first and foremost, they abandoned games as their focus. They weren't paying any money while Sony's throwing money at developers. Yeah. So I gotta say, Xbox lost immensely, and I mean their sales speak volumes to that. The Nintendo Switch is at 53 million already in half of the time of the Xbox. So their sales are abysmal, their exclusives are abysmal. Xbox Game Passes are only saving grace right now, and that's only recently become a positive.
Yeah. I am going to say, in my opinion, I think the loser of this console generation would be Nintendo. I'm going to say the Nintendo Switch is the loser, and here are my reasons. The Nintendo Switch is still a decade behind in terms of technology when we're speaking consoles. The biggest factor for the Nintendo Switch being the loser, in my opinion, is that the availability of games for the Nintendo Switch, 90% of it are mobile games. They're like phone games you can get on the iOS store, games you can get on the Google Play Store.
Or decade-old remasters, like the Resident Evils.
Remasters and all kinds of, they touted the Switch as this device. You're gonna be playing, heavy console games on the go, but is that really the case when you get games like, let's say, Doom that are dumbed down for the Nintendo Switch, or Wolfenstein that are dumbed down for the Switch? Everything is running at a lower frame rate.
Well, the experience is compromised in all aspects, graphics, frame rate, everything.
You're shelling out full price, $60. You're paying the Nintendo tax. That's a thing. That's gonna be another topic for another day.
Oh, that's a good one.
You're paying the Nintendo tax on games that are a decade old, 5 years old, and you're getting a compromised experience. Yeah, you're getting a compromised experience. Games aren't released on the same day. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, you have the first party titles, which can be good, but a lot of the time, in my opinion, they're overrated experiences that, because of, again, this would be another topic, but the Nintendo bias, they're immune to certain criticisms that other games would get. Now, yes, we have the Xbox, they didn't really have the exclusives, but even when you had those multi-platform games, and when you did have whatever exclusives did release, they ran flawlessly and they worked extremely well on the console, and the online infrastructure for Xbox is still really good. And the gaming experience is still really good. I played Resident Evil 2 on my Xbox. It was still a fantastic experience, and I still prefer Xbox for shooters. So I would definitely give them that, but they, obviously Xbox just dropped the ball in terms of exclusivity, but because of all the bad points for the Switch, I am gonna have to say that the Switch is the loser, and I hope that Nintendo can come around with the next generation.
Yeah,
that's my thoughts. So so now that we figured like who we thought won, who we thought lost, and why, right? So what would be the steps for continued success going into this new console generation that we're going into? Yeah. So what do you think that like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo can do in the future to either continue whatever success they're currently experiencing or reach success?
Okay. So I'll start with Sony. I think Sony has a multi-tiered approach, but really to sum it all up, stay the course. Continue to develop and invest in new intellectual properties like they did. They need to resurrect some of their dormant franchise, which are sitting on a gold mine of franchise that belong to them or are synonymous with the brand, say Sly Cooper, Jack and Daxter, Twisted Metal, and Infamous. We only had one Infamous this whole console generation.
Kind of like what they did with Ratchet and Clank, brought that back, which was good.
So they got to resurrect some of those dormant franchises, continue to lock in exclusives, even if they're only timed exclusives. But I think their most important approach also would be to completely revitalize and revolutionize their PlayStation Now service, which most people don't even know about because it's trash. It's only PS3 games and a couple newer games. They need to revitalize that service so that it can go toe-to-toe with Xbox Game Pass, which is one of the coolest things going on in gaming. Microsoft already has the right idea. When they bought out Ninja Theory and all these third-party studios that like had potential, and they're still giving them their creative freedom while giving them those big bucks backing them. And I think they saw how important that is with Cuphead. Give them their creative freedom, give them the cash, and let them do their thing. So they're locking in all these titles under their umbrella brand.
Exactly,
now.
And I will say that,
and they're focusing on games.
Yes, you've seen Hellblade 2. That blew my mind. And I was like, that kind of sold me on an Xbox. I really want to play that game. So, I'm going to end up shelling out because Hellblade is one of my favorite games this generation. And now that we're getting an expanded experience, and Hellblade 2 is most likely going to be a full-on RPG.
Oh, yeah.
I'm definitely going to, shell out the bucks.
But there is something that they're already walking on dangerous waters that I do hope they backtrack on, even though I, called them cowards for backtracking previously. And that is the Xbox Series X or whatever it's going to be called now, will not have an exclusive title for over a year. What's my incentive to invest in that hardware? It's just not there for me. Because there's the S, there's the X, the Scorpio, whatever. They need to incentivize people buying that hardware. And for Nintendo, this is an odd one, but I think Nintendo needs to stop trying to compete. They're not in the big dog race. They're not in varsity. They're in JV. They need to stay in their lane. They need to do their own thing. Probably get a little bit more powerful hardware out there so they can see a little bit more third party. But Nintendo is a secondary console, and they can't compete with the big dogs anymore. They need to give an experience that can only be had at Nintendo. Rest on those exclusive franchises, but crank them out in a faster rate. But also let other developers make games with their franchises, so their intellectual properties, just like they did with Ubisoft and that Mario Rabbids game, so that you can keep pumping out a plethora of games and have a fresh twist on those games. So stop trying to compete.
So you said something here. So I disagree with what you're saying. So you said they need to stop trying to compete. Nintendo has actually said that they're not trying to compete. I think Nintendo's issue is that they're not trying to compete. They are staying in their own lane. They don't care about upgrading their hardware. They did just give us a slight boost to Wii U hardware in handheld form.
That's the thing, their demographic. You have two types of demographic that are leaning towards the Nintendo fan. You have the old crowd who've been riding on the nostalgia forever, and it doesn't matter what Nintendo puts out, they're gonna call it God's tier.
Yeah.
And then you have younger audiences. And parents want that entry. They're at the sweet price point. They're affordable, especially with the Switch Lite now. So I think they're targeting their demographic, and it's the people that don't have a whole lot of money. But people are buying. What console are parents gonna buy for their kids first?
Switch is $250, man. I mean, you're just a little bit off from getting an Xbox at this point in time. I think that their demographic should be whoever plays games. If Nintendo wants to, the Switch is an incredible idea. If it had the powerful hardware backing this incredible idea, a lot more people would have Switches. I know that they're always going to have...
By design, it's never going to happen because you're never going to be able to put the hardware that's powerful enough to give you that on-the-go experience. So whatever
but that's the thing.
They're going from 1080 to 720, you know, but still, I mean, they're just, you're not going to be able to pump the hardware into that small device while not compromising too much, because we're about to go light years ahead now. The Switch has Nintendo has no plans of putting out this new Switch model in 2020. They've already said it in their board of directors meeting. Yeah. So they're about to get left behind. I mean, they're already left behind, and we're gonna see an immense gap. I don't think they can compete, and I don't think they can fix it. They can't fix it at a price point that makes sense while still maintaining. Now, here's how Nintendo fixes it, and this won't happen because they're too deep down this rabbit hole. Abandon the hybrid console. Phase out the DS completely, which has been happening for a while.
That's been happening for a long time, yeah.
The Switch is an exclusive handheld console that can be hybrid still, if you want to pay for an additional base and put out a real console.
But, they can fix it. Nintendo fans will always be Nintendo fans. Even if you release a more powerful console that's a little bit more expensive, everyone's still going to go out and buy it because they're Nintendo fans.
Not true. The Wii U sales were horrendous. And the Nintendo, they were horrendous. And the Wii U had a lot of really good exclusive first-party platforms, a lot. Which is why we see a resurgence of like Wonderful 101 now.
But the problem with the Wii U was that people were ignorant.
It was a marketing issue.
It was a marketing issue.
I'll give you that.
It wasn't really like a console issue.
But Nintendo fans are in on it, though. Like, they're informed. And that console didn't move units.
I think that people who always follow Nintendo picked up a Wii U, but like with the Switch, I know that now they're cannibalizing their own handheld market with that as well. Yeah. But they got to compete, man, because they're gonna get stuck with an eShop full of iPhone games and their own first-party titles.
But you want to know what the problem with that is? Nintendo fans accept it. They accept it and they don't question it and they don't demand more. They're okay with Final Fantasy X coming out at $50. They're okay with Donkey Kong from the Wii U, which launched in 2015, I believe, being $49.99. The price it came out of the Wii U, and they spend the money. Yeah. They spend the money. So if they're shopping with their wallets and they are speaking the language of we love what you do, keep doing what you do, by voting on that with their wallets, why would Nintendo do anything different?
Yeah, I mean, you have a point. So for Nintendo, it's more of a start competing thing. Sony, they just gotta stay the course. They're already in the lead. They have a strong lineup of exclusives, and
Microsoft
Xboxes.
Already has the right mindset.
Yeah, they're switching into that mindset. You know, the only thing that we're gonna have to worry about is the crossplay thing, which may kind of like the crossplay thing is gonna kind of calm the console wars a little bit, because multiplayer is big. A lot of people are still into like Call of Duty heavy and all these multiplayer
you bought your
games.
console where your friends were playing.
Yeah, so now it's just crossplay. Whatever console's in your house, you get the game, and then you're playing with your boy on his other console. So now it's not going to be as important. So I still think Sony may still have the edge when it comes to exclusives, which is going to lock people into that console. And then if I don't need to get an Xbox to play with my boy playing Destiny, I'm gonna just get it on my PS5. So
not to mention, if you're apt to buy a console, why not buy Sony if you have a PC at home and you can play those Microsoft games everywhere now, pretty much.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about the console wars? Who won? Who lost? What do they have to do for continued success in the future? Let's go ahead and talk about it. As always, guys, like, subscribe, follow on all my socials at YaBoyRoshi, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you have any suggestions for any topics you want to hear discussed on this segment, go ahead and drop some suggestions, man. I got some good ones on the last episode, so looking forward to hear what you guys think. But that's all we got for you guys today. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you guys next time.